I was with you in person. I was supposed to be flying to Australia on the 23rd, so a few days' time, but of course that's not happening. We're still in level 3 lockdown where I'm living in East Kent in the United Kingdom. But anyway, making the most of it, and it's wonderful that I can zoom in with you all. It's been a wonderful, plus in this difficult time, isn't it? To stay connected and even across the world. So yeah, so I'm going to give us a talk, be about 30 minutes. And so just, as I'm talking, there will be things that will strike you about in relation to your life, and maybe you just want to jot them down. And so, then we can sort of just we'll have time for sort of questions or discussion afterwards for a little while. So yeah, just notice what stands out for you. So yeah, hold on, here we go. So the talk is called Actions Have Consequences. I'm sure you've heard that one before, and we're all old enough to know that that's true, that actions have consequences, and they have consequences for not only us and those around us, and actually the world too, because all us humans are having a major effect on this world, and we're one of them. So yeah, and I was sort of thinking, well, where do actions come from? And well, they come from views, our views, sort of our intentions really as how to live a life, well, our overall sort of ethical perspective as well. And all of this comes from what we've learned, on this journey so far. A sort of broad education really. And education starts when we arrive in the world. I think when we're born, our birth has its effect on us. Not that we know much about it, but it does. And then of course how our caregivers were with us, but were, how they looked after us, how they took care of us in our early years. And of course, we don't know much about that either, because I mean, my first memory is about when I was 4. I remember getting a blue police bike for my 4th birthday. I can't remember much before that. But of course, there was being a lot happening up until that point, and all that was going in sort of through osmosis at quite a deep emotional level, actually. And well, if you have siblings, like I do, I have an older brother and a younger sister, and they may look like me, but they're very different from me. Whatever spirit, got zapped in there was a bit different from mine. And of course, I learned things from them, sort of more education, really. And then, I'm creating my choices, my actions, and all from all these education. And well, it has consequences, on others and on myself and then the world. So we go at life with these views from other people and from our sort of social education, so school education, and our role models such as teachers, grandparents, friends, well, and the surrounding culture, which actually is quite a powerful one. Actually, depends. We can be brought up in very different social situations, even in the same country, same city, even actually. Which of course has consequences based on views that were never mine. So there's all these other people. And actually for me, it wasn't until I was 30 years old that I was stopped by quite a bad health situation. And that sort of woke me up to the thoughts, like, I'd never asked myself questions like, what are my views? What do I think? What consequences am I having on the world? Who am I? I don't know why I had lived till I was 30 and hadn't known that I could ask these questions. Mad, really, lack of awareness, but hey. Anyway, so that for me, that was an illness that stopped me. And I had to look inside and feel more deeply and sort of listen to my deeper voices. And and so, like, my book, it's not out there, really is sort of help a lot of the things that I've learned since then. And sort of it helps explore answers to these questions and sort of many, many more. So I basically realized that I'd sort of taken on blindly other people's emotional worlds and their emotional views, and sort of gone at life without checking in deeply with my own inner nature, my own voice, my own spirit. What am I here for? What's this unique being? Where do I get my meaning from? And then living that. I sort of really believe we're a work of art. Each one of us are a work of art. And you're creating your work of art and I'm creating mine. And it just depends how we are in the world, doesn't it? I can be, I can use lovely words that create sort of a beauty in relation to others in the world, or I can use quite harsh ones. I know some, I haven't used them for a while, but with everything, just the way we are, and of course our views affect a lot of that. So yeah, I really believe that, and of course our work of art is always being created this moment for the next moment. So I became unwell by following others' perceptions of how things are, for other people, or how they thought I should be. It's almost like I think I was going at life doing what my parents wanted me to do, or what culture wanted me to do, get a good job and, all the rest of it. There's a whole list, isn't there? But as we know, most humans are driven by the three poisons, greed, hatred and delusion, that center of the wheel of life, which of course doesn't help the views that I've been taking on through all these people over the years. And then of course, as I'm sure you all know, we've slowly learned that that's not the way, that generosity, love and wisdom is what creates a beautiful life, sort of beautiful work of art, And I imagine your life, will have resonances at times of, taking actions and suffering the consequences, and sort of like seeing little insights that action didn't bring me happiness. It didn't bring me contentment. Often it brought the opposite. And even though we've had many little insights, we create habits and we can trip ourselves up again. Somehow we don't learn too easy always. But I mean, this is something, I did when I was young. It may resonate with you or not, but, I went out with some friends and we had a few drinks and I had a few too many. And then, go home, and the next day I felt deathly, And what do you say? Never again. Never again. A few months later, I'm out with my friends and these peers are putting pressure, oh, go on, haven't they? And there I am, doing it again. And in a way, that's a sort of a growth story from earlier life, but actually I think we can do this in lots of ways. We have to learn, what helps us. And I think this is all to do with self-love, self-worth. I hadn't yet learned that I didn't need to harm myself in that way. And I think this is where metta, loving kindness is so important. I think actually lack of self-worth is the biggest poison the human has, actually. We're so often not our best friend. We're often, we wouldn't let our friends and family talk to us sometimes the way we talk to ourselves. Yes, so, it's so important, self-worth. And we just haven't built up this sort of our own core of worth, really. I think it's an ongoing process. That's a real area I still need to work on. Still need to work on. That's why the great thing of the Metta Bhavana, isn't it? It's a real wonderful gift and workshop for us. And then there's this thing, I sort of see it like we have different characters on duty at different times in our mind, So it's sort of like, one day, I'm on a diet and I've got the strong will. That's what I'm doing for whatever reason, for a health reason or whatever it is, and or an ethical reason or whatever. And that's what I'm doing. Okay, so then, I have a dodgy night's sleep that night. And we all know what a dodgy night's sleep does. The next day, you're not quite with it. Your will's not quite as strong. along. And there I am eating a cream and jam donut in the middle of the day, you know. How did that happen? You know? um, and there's all these different personalities, all these different energies. And this is integration, of course. You know, this is us getting, you know, it's what meditation, as you all know, you know, you don't sit there and have a quiet mind, you know, just like that, do you? In a way, we're getting to know all our wonderful characters that are pulling us in different directions. We have to slowly love them all and acknowledge them all and get them on side. So yeah, so then we can be one energy going in one direction, sort of, well, creating a beautiful perfume in our wake, you know, with our words and our being. Yeah. So at some point for you to be listening, you know, to me right now, you'll have been stopped by something, by some sort of suffering in life. That's normally what happens. Somebody's died, lost a job, or, you know, health or whatever. We sort of go, oh, blimey, what am I doing? And we have to check in. And we have to sort of stop, look, and feel, and sort of think, gosh, who's creating my life? You know. And again, lots of answers are, you know, are in my book. There's 25 chapters in there, all very accessible language. Chapter 4 is called It's Not Out There, so which is obviously the title of the book. Now, it's interesting where that title came from, It's Not Out There, but you can see the way it's written, it's not out there, it's here. It's sort of like what its meaning is, it's in our heart, basically. It's within us. And of course, in a way, then when we do it that way round, and we come from, you know, the deepest in us, out there is amazing, you know, and it's that way round. We're not, you know, I think in my early years I was told that, you know, you get the good job, you get the partner, you get the home, you get everything out there, and then it'll be all right. But of course it's not, because I hadn't looked in my own being and my own heart, and, you know, where my truth is actually. So chapter 4 goes into that a lot more, but that title came from when I moved to Deal, 16 years ago now. You know, I decided to sort of see if there are any people out there interested in Buddhism. So I put I decided to give a public talk, and I put this poster up around the town about a talk I was going to give, and the talk was called It's Not Out There. And I thought maybe half a dozen or a dozen people would come, and we'd got a room with 40 seats in. I thought, oh, well, okay, they might rattle around in it. But we got 78 people in that room, and we had to turn people away. So something in that title sort of worked somehow. And it's actually working again, because Windhorse has just ordered another 2,000 books to be printed, because it's selling well, because so many people are buying it for other people. So we're creating our life, okay, and we know that. And be sure I'm doing mine, you're doing yours. There's no one to blame, which is it's a wonderful thing about Buddhism. It's one of the things I really like, that the Buddha says, I have to take full responsibility. It lies with me. You know, I can do this, I can do that. You know, it's nowhere else. And blaming is just futile. It just creates more suffering. You know, things happen. We wish they hadn't, you know, but they do. But what's the best we can do with them, rather than adding the second dart or the third dart, you know, to make it worse. So yeah, who's creating your life? Who's acting? Who's speaking? Who's choosing your thoughts? I mean, it might not feel like you're choosing your thoughts at times. It certainly doesn't feel like that for me, but I am. So chapter 2 is called It's Never Not Now. Okay, so it's never not now, is it? Yeah, it's never not now. And all of our lives only happen now, in all the nows. It's actually a whole collection of nows. But actually, most people miss most of their lives, which is quite sad, really, because they're in their sort of memory of the past. They're sort of, well, either regretting things, or wishing it done different, or being worried about something somebody said, or, you know, there's lots, or we're carrying pains of the past still, actually, where we don't need to. Yes, we need to learn from the past. It's really wise and helpful, isn't it? But we don't need to dwell in it too much. Or we're sort of in the future, we're sort of planning and hoping, or fearing. There's often a lot of anxiety and fearing, isn't there, you know, about future, you know, particularly at the moment, it's sort of like I mean, there's a sort of healthy level of concern, but actually, well, I'm sure you're like me. You've coped with everything that's happened so far in your life, haven't you? However good, however bad, you're here. How wonderful. You've coped. And you've got a spiritual practice too. Wow, even better. You've got more tools than lots of people. So why fear and angst? Because we don't know what's coming. We really don't know what's coming. But actually, we can make all our nows much richer by not constraining them by all that fear and angst. It's about trusting ourselves, actually. Trusting we've got the tools and we'll cope. So, it's never not now. And we know that through practicing Buddhism. There's lots of talks about awareness and mindfulness of breathing. It's all about coming back to our body and here, because that's the only place where we can make the wisest of choices, because we're receiving all our sense information. And that's the only place that we can make the wisest choice, isn't it? Because we've got all the information with more clarity than anywhere else. So yes, that's chapter 2. Now, some of you might have heard me say this before, because I'm sure I said it on the day I led with you 3 or 4 years ago, but you are stuffed full of love. You're absolutely stuffed full of love. Where else can it be? Is it up on the shelf? Is it in somebody else? No, it's whether we let it live or not. Nobody's got any more or less than anybody else. I could be loving or I could be miserable. It's a choice, isn't it? And of course, some days it's a bit harder than others. That's the way it is. But we've got, like as the Buddha says, we've got all the qualities. We're stuffed full of courage, confidence, kindness, patience. It's just whether we choose to let it exist in our world and those around us. So yeah, this all this I talk about in the chapter called Let Your Love Live, chapter 16, Let Your Love Live. And there's lots more in that. So I'm just touching on 6 chapters in this talk, actually, of the 25. So yeah, but before I go on to another chapter, I just want to say at this point something that I think is very obvious, but I don't often hear it said in relation to actions having consequences. And that is, not acting has consequences. Non-actions has consequences. Now, sometimes that's a good thing, isn't it? Not to do something. But it's also interesting to sort of take that on board, whether we're acting or not. Now, chapter 6 is called I Can't Change. I can't change. Have you ever said that or heard people saying it? Well, we went into lockdown, first of all, in March. We had complete lockdown at the end of March. And I heard so many people say, I can't learn Zoom. I can't learn Zoom. But of course, we can. It's a choice, or whatever it is. And for those who have learned, of course, it's opened up, a rich world. And we can go all over the world to any Sangha night, wherever you want to go, or whatever retreat, or to do a yoga class or whatever. Of course, it's better in person. But so it's like we can change. The fact is that we are change. We are change. That's just, we're a process, aren't we? We were born, we die. Bits of me's dropping off as we speak, hairs falling on the floor, more skin to dust off the shelf. It's like we're just a process. I know, just have a sip of water because my mouth is dry. Well, and that's water going in, isn't it? And it'll go out a bit later. It's just we are change. The question is, how do you want to change? It really is, like the Buddha says, take full responsibility. It's taking the reins of our life, which we all know, but how much are we doing that? Are we creating a beautiful work of art, really? Taking full responsibility. We can change. Anything. I can learn a language. I can go and live in outer Mongolia if I wanted. It's a choice. Well, probably not at the moment because they won't let me out. But that's another matter. Still, anyhow, can't do everything, even though we can change. Anyway, you're still with me. We're getting there. Nobody nodded off yet. No. Good. Okay, here we go. So this chapter 17. Quite a lot of people have given me feedback on the book. so far, and even though I'm blowing my own trumpet, I've not had any negative comments yet, and nobody's thrown it in the bin, I don't think. But actually, they say that the ones that have said about different chapters, they said this chapter they find the most useful and interesting, but they think it's the most difficult to bring into their life. And it's called Discipline is Enjoyable. Discipline is enjoyable. Now, you might not put those two words together that often, but actually, it's so true. And you know it already. You've obviously tried to get a daily meditation practice going at home, without people ringing the bells or whatever. And it's not easy, is it? Well, speak for myself, but once we have the discipline to do that and put that drop in of metta or mindfulness, metta, my everyday, it's sort of like life gets better, doesn't it? It is more enjoyable. There's lots of things I touch on in this chapter. I'm just going to touch on 3 of them now, which I think are absolutely fundamental for any good life. And I think it's absolutely fundamental if we mean to be enlightened or become wiser or have more clarity. It's about how our body is. And it's sleep, diet, and exercise. I think sometimes we don't pay enough attention to these absolutely fundamental things. Now, actually, I had to, because when I was 30, I was stopped and I was bedbound for 13 months. I needed to look at how I've been living and what I got to do. And so I asked this body when it liked to sleep, not worrying about a clock or what anybody else said. And this body likes to sleep, go to bed at 9, and it wakes at 4:52. It's a bit strange, but I don't have an alarm and I'm as bright as a button. But that's what this body likes, and different bodies like different things. It likes routine as well. I think it's another word that actually can, people think, oh no, but because Bhante Sangharashtra says routine gives strength, and it's my experience. If I have a good sleep routine, and mostly I can go to bed at 9, I've built a life around it, not always, can't be too extreme mentally, can we? Something happens, you go and do it. But mostly where I can, that's what I do. I've also learned one other thing. Somebody gave me a tip years and years ago now, that if I get up within 2 or 3 minutes of waking, you're bright for the day. And actually it's true. If I say, oh, I'm just going to treat myself to another half hour, if I wake half hour later, my mind is boggy and my body is a bit more boggy. It's just how it is. I mean, you can check these things out. I've seen lots of patients over the last 25 years, and ones I've suggested this to, when actually done it, not everybody does it, of course, but actually it does work, and it just makes life, a mind, and everything a bit richer. Finding the time of day that's good for you, and actually getting up within 2 or 3 minutes. So then there's diet. I don't particularly like the word diet, because you often hear people talking about special diets and all this sort of thing. Well, we're on a diet of food and drink, aren't we? It's just it's just how it is. It's what it is. We're taking in. But I had to look at my diet to see what was helping and what wasn't. And what I learned was there was things that actually not helping me at all, actually poisoning me almost. Wheat, dairy, sugar, chili, bananas. That for me, that did not help my body function. And of course, it's different for all of us. I don't think we need to listen to any diet or anything. We just ask our body. It takes time, right, okay, I'm not going to have wheat for a month. Is that better or not? And it's like asking our body. It knows, it's got fantastic wisdom. And just doing that has helped me. Well, I'm 61 now, and I feel I've got as much energy as ever. And I think the sleep and the diet has really helped me. And I feel really healthy. I sometimes say, I might die today, which is true, but actually I'm going to die healthy, as healthy as I can. Yes, of course, things are going wrong with my body, but that's the nature of it. I'm in a different season. Things do drop off and do things. But there we go. We manage it as well as we can. And I think sleep and diet has helped me manage it. And the last one is exercise. I think exercise for, the ability of our body. We all have, different capacity for exercise and whatever. I didn't do much exercise until about 8 years ago. I sort of got by somehow. But actually about 8 years ago, I was just thinking, I really do want to do something for my lungs and heart sort of thing. And sort of pondering what to do. Anyway, I came across these YouTube clips. They'd just been the London Marathon, and they interviewed the oldest guy who was 86, who just completed his 23rd London Marathon, consecutive London Marathon. Then they interviewed a lady, the oldest lady, 83, and she just completed her 18th consecutive London Marathon. I thought, oh, blimey. Well, if they can do that, you know, I can trot along the seafront for a few kilometres. So that's what I did, and I learned I did enjoy it. I mean, we need to enjoy whatever exercise we do, because we're not going to do it for very long if we don't, are we? You know, especially if it's a cold, wet morning. You know, so it's sort of like finding what you do, you know, what helps us, but the body needs to move, doesn't it? Whatever that is for us, whether it's walking or whatever it is. And so these three things I think are absolutely fundamental for our self-love, for our self-care, for, yeah, just looking after ourselves. So bright mind, bright energy, and then everything else follows from that, doesn't it? So the last chapter I'm just going to touch on, number 7, is called What We Dwell On We Become. You know, what we dwell on we become. You know, somebody said to me, all I need is the list of chapter titles, actually, because it's quite an education as it is. There's all these little reminders. So yeah, what we dwell on we become. So, well, you know this, but it ends, you know, if we're not in the best state of mind, somewhere we're too tired, we can choose unwisely or whatever. You know, what we read, you know, it's all coming in here. It's all what I'm becoming the next moment, isn't it? Or, yes, who we mix with, are they helping us become who we want to, and are they helping us, you know? Well, movies, you know, what movies? I do like movies. Actually, I've got an addiction I will share with you. And I've only got one addiction, I think. And it's like I'm addicted to romantic movies. I really love a romantic movie. But I think it's helping me become more loving, hopefully, you know, or else I am deluded. You know, I haven't watched a horror film or anything that's blood in it, you know, if I can help it, for years, you know, or bad language now and again one slips in. But so it's all that I'm becoming all these things, aren't I? So, you know, I talk about lots of things about all the different areas that we dwell on and what we're becoming, because, you know, we are becoming, and it is what we want to become. And we you know, we are taking this seriously as Buddhists, aren't we? That's why we're meditating, studying, you know, developing friends with people who we're wanting to become like, and we, you know, doing things together. It's just how it is. You know, what I'm talking about is just being human, actually. But actually, we've got an amazing, Buddha's given us an amazing amount of tools to help that. So yeah. Okay, so now actions. Well, I know some of you bought my book already. Thank you very much. Some have even read it. That's even more helpful. And there's an ebook as well. And well, you know, you could, it came out yesterday in Australia, New Zealand and America, and you could order the book or go and get the book from your local bookshop. They can get it in. I've looked online, and you've got some bookshops in Melbourne that have got it there or coming, and because you might like to support your local bookshop. You know, I don't know what they're doing in Melbourne, but ours are disappearing, you know, and I love going and pootling around a bookshop, but if we don't buy our books there, it won't, you know, go around, they won't be there long. But of course, you can also buy it in your bookshop in the Buddhist centre when they're there, if they're there, you know, because you want to support your Buddhist centre, you know. So it's like choosing, or you could buy it direct from Windhorse. Well, Windhorse, as you know, are the Triratna Buddhist publishers who's actually published my book. Thank you very much, Windhorse. Amazing. And well, they really need help, actually, because all they do up until now is just print purely Buddhist books for Buddhists, and we want them to keep doing that. But my books are first for them, because actually my book is accessible to anybody from any walk of life. It's aimed at anybody from any walk of life, any religion or none. It's in very accessible English language. I was going to say there isn't a dodgy word in it, but there is. There's one. It's got my name on the front, Danapriya. So there's only one Sanskrit Pali word. The rest is very accessible. You don't have to learn another language to understand it, which is what I want it to be. I want to help humans, actually. That's what I want to do. Because so anyway, you could buy it from Windhorse, and that would help them, because they need to break into a bigger market to be able to keep printing Buddhist books, okay? Or you could buy it, I mean, I'm not sure quite what your equivalent is, it probably is Amazon, but they're probably not one. You could buy it from what, you know, one of these big, huge, greedy corporations that is actually closing down all our small bookshops. You know, and well, it's like our ethical choice, isn't it? And of course, we have this in everything in our life. You know, where are you getting your power from? Is it, you know, sustainable energy and all that? So it makes us think about that too. Yeah, and if you do buy my book and read it, do let me know what you think, because it's really helpful, because I've started number 2 now, and it's helpful the more I learn from this one. And yeah, I've got a website, danapriya.org, O-R-G, not difficult. You can send me a message. I'd really appreciate that. Yeah, well, what happened last year for me, so well, I was 60, that was, and I sort of thought, okay, so what's this next decade about? You know, I stepped down from running the Deal Buddhist group after 11 years. I'd sort of thought, okay, got a bit of energy left. I know it will decline in this next 10 years. Well, if I have 10, hopefully. What do I want to do with it? And I came up with this phrase is, I want to share what I've been given. That's what I came up with, because I just was feeling I've been given so much by so many wise people, you know, wise teachers in the Buddhist tradition, in Triratna. I've been on so many retreats, you know, I read, yeah, lots of things, friends, one-to-one meetings. It just helps so much. I wanted to share what I've been given. And this book is part of that, actually. And this is a big part of sharing what I've been given. And it's totally Buddhist, every chapter in this book. As I said, it's 25 chapters, very, very, very short, easy accessible, but actually a lot of work to make. You know, it's like, it's not, in a way, it may sound, you know, it's light, but there's, you know, there's things to do to create, to get us enlightened, you know, hurry up. So yeah, we are amazing. Actually, each one of us, each human is amazing. We've got all the qualities we need, as I said, we're stuffed full of them, to sort of see differently and live an extraordinary, ordinary life. And I really hope this book is going to help our human predicament and help us have our actions that create amazingly positive consequences. So that's what I wanted to share with you. Thank you.